Hey Sam, how are you?
Hi, I'm all
Now I can
good.
hear
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, just having a bit of
you.
difficulty setting it up there. But yeah, we're finally here, so that's great.
Finally.
Finally, yeah.
How's your day going so far?
Yeah, it's quite good. Yeah,
Awesome.
good weather for once in Britain. Starting to get into summer now, so
Yeah, same
it's
here.
a lot better.
Muggy and hot.
Yeah, yeah, cool. You're about Midwest, aren't you? I think.
No, right on the East Coast.
Oh yeah, that's it. You said Boston. Yeah,
About an hour outside of Boston, an hour west of Boston.
cool. Okay, so yeah, another episode here of the Shoegaze Legend series, and I'm here with Roger Lavallee from the Curtain Society.
Hello there.
So yeah, we've got about 40 minutes to talk about anything we want, and
All right.
I normally keep it quite loose. Really, that's normally how I do it. So I don't really mind where we can start. You know, it's up to you. We can start where you want to.
Well, you know what? I'm curious how you, of all people, found out about the Curtain Society. So I'm curious, and that'll lead me somewhere.
Well, it all started from looking at obscure shoegaze playlists on YouTube. And
Yeah.
I think Riverful was included on that
Oh yeah.
playlist. And that was the song that actually really struck me as well. I'm thinking, wow, this is an incredible piece of songwriting.
Thank you. That's definitely one of my favorites. It's always been one of my favorites, and um, and I remember, and we did that in 1996, and we did that at the studio in Boston that I was working at the time, and um, I just have awesome, excuse me, awesome memories about working on that album.
Mm.
Having a lot of, I did have a lot of stress trying to finish songs. Like I booked the time, but we didn't have all the songs finished. And Bedazzled Records were like, we got a deadline. We got to, get the whole thing mixed and mastered by a certain time. And then I was, I'd be driving out to Boston at like 9 in the morning and scribbling lyrics down in a notebook on the way to the studio. Um, but that was one of the earlier ones I think that we did for the record. And I don't know, I think as long as we were together, we're been together since 1988, and kind of went through a few different uh, phases, sounds that we tried, and like sort of um, things that we were trying to accomplish. And finally, I think with Riverful, for example, was one of the songs that I really felt like, oh my God, we finally arrived at something that I thought sounded unique to us. Like I didn't think anybody else could have sounded like that. I was what, 25 years old, so I'm sure I was lying to myself and delusional, but I was really proud of how that sounded, because like it just felt like this is exactly the what would happen if the three of us were working on a song, and this is what we did. It wasn't like we were trying to do anything specific. It's just what we did, and I was really proud of it. I think we were all very proud of it. There's a lot of stuff that we did on that record that I thought was really kind of nice that way, like felt really good about it.
Mm. Thank you for that. I really like the vocals. I think
Thank you.
your voice is very good.
Thank you very much.
Nice smooth tone.
And
Yeah, that really helps to make it. Really helps to make the song. I think your vocals.
I think I used to, and I'd hide my vocals behind a lot of effects, especially early on. Like, oh my God, our earlier stuff when we were still teenagers, like the demos that we were doing like in 1988 and stuff, I sang with a fake British accent because I was trying to imitate my idols at the time, and it took me quite a long time to like my voice and to not want to bury it completely and like obfuscate it and or obscure it. That's the word that I'm looking for. Obscure it
Mm.
to the point where like it doesn't sound like me anymore. And it took me quite a while sort of work that out psychologically. Like, I'm not ashamed of my voice.
Yeah, it's like that typical shoegaze thing.
Yeah,
Everybody just buries it. So
it's, I think part of what, to me, part of what defines bands that sort of align with the shoegaze vibe is, not always, but sometimes it's a lack of that sort of confidence and bravado to be, you know, Roger Daltrey, or like,
yeah,
like a real like front person, and like letting it all hang out. We're all a little shyer than that. And so it's like, I think that is one of the things that defines, it's not just the sound or just the effects or whatever. It's a sort of personality type.
Personality, yeah, for sure. Yeah, that impressionistic style, I would say. That's what
Right.
that's what it kind of results in. You know, like Monet, like some
Yeah.
Claude Monet or Renoir, actually, you know, but playing an instrument rather than the
Right.
paintbrush.
It's that mindset. It's like, you don't want to be too obvious. You don't want to be too just out in front. You want to be like a little bit in the back. And
Well, I
maybe
quite like. I think that's one of the things that draws me to the genre.
same.
You know,
Me too.
that kind of mystery, and you can kind of just try and work out the lyrics and work out the vibe, and you know, and not everything has to be pushed in your face like here. It's good.
Right.
It's another, you know, it's another approach.
And you, the listener, are free to kind of interpret what it means. Like one of the, if I can kind of get into my history of what defined what kind of music I would make, is because I've been doing this since I was 9 years old. So I knew when I was 5 years old that I wanted to be a musician, want to be a guitar player. And I got serious when I was 9, and went through different phases musically. But somewhere in high school, I got into watching 120 Minutes on MTV, the alternative show before alternative was a word, because something in me was gravitating away from mainstream music and I wanted something different. I lived in this little town that I didn't have a lot of people. My sister was an influence because she was older, is older, and had friends that were like kind of getting her into cool music.
Yeah.
And the gateway, I think for a lot of people, my generation, the gateway was The Cure. And the thing that I say about The Cure is, like, they were the band that, because they were pretty almost mainstream because they were on MTV, and they were like the band that drew back the curtain and said, hey, come check out this stuff. And you'd kind of walk back there and you'd find all this like underground stuff and post-punk stuff. And the band that really slayed me was Cocteau Twins. And I think that is probably key for a lot of bands that were doing that sort of shoegaze sound with the effects and the sort of really pretty and beautiful sounds, but sort of ambiguous. It wasn't just crunchy guitars, that's cool too. But Cocteau Twins was just a mind blower for me. And their lyrics, you had no choice but to like interpret what they're saying.
A made up language, yes.
So it's like that I learned from that. I learned like you could still get a feeling from the music without it necessarily having to be so in your face and so obvious what the lyrics were about. But I'd grown up on the Monkees. I'd grown up on pop music. So I did like melodic music and songs. And my thing, even before like shoegaze was a thing, or before alternative was even a word, I was interested in mixing sort of melodic pop songs that had a melody that you could remember, but sort of, because I was really into bands like Cocteau Twins and the Chameleons and House of Love and The Cure and that sort of thing. The sound was more mysterious sounding, like you had mentioned, and more layered, and guitars didn't necessarily sound like guitars, and that really interested me. And so I didn't know exactly, because there was no scene, especially where we were from, because we were from a small town in Massachusetts, and we didn't really have other bands around us. We were so unlike any other musicians around us, because it was all like, it was the 80s, so it was all metal bands and hair metal stuff, and we were like so not that at all. And so we had a hard time as a local band in our area, and it took us a while to get a foothold like in the Boston scene in order to come back and play our hometown and be able to do well. But I remember a moment, and this is a very strong memory for me. I remember a moment in like 1991, and I was really into Kitchens of Distinction.
Yes.
And Lush.
Yeah, I've been listening to Kitchens very, very recently. Strange Free World. Actually,
Yeah.
I had the vinyl. It was on the table here last week, but I put it upstairs now. But
I love that record so much. And that was when that came out. And by that time, I'd already gotten into Lush and Chapter House and Ride, and then Kitchens. And then Slow Dive, we didn't even know about. I had to find out about Slow Dive like through a friend of a friend, and like, right, you know,
t-shirt today.
When at that moment, I remember like thinking, wow, this is awesome, because like there's all these bands in England that are doing something similar to what we're trying to do, just accidentally, you know. We weren't necessarily influenced by them until we heard them, you know what I mean? Like we were already kind of doing something like that, and we were like, wow, finally there's gonna be the scene, and we're gonna get swept up in it. And you know, it never became this like massive scene, but we did get in the 90s, the mid 90s, the Boston music scene was amazing. There were so many awesome bands, and we got kind of swept up with them, and then we got swept up with the Bedazzled bands. And it's like, with a label like Bedazzled, they're like 4AD in that if you liked one band, you liked them all, because they're all different, but like they had a similar mindset. And we loved everybody on Bedazzled, and we'd like tour with them, and we were still best friends with the folks from An April March up in Canada. There's a funny story. I could tell you a story about them and our connection with them.
I think I've heard of the name April March.
Oh my God, An April March. There's April March, who is also a singer musician. She's fantastic. But An April March were this band from Toronto in the 90s, and they were our first like kin band. Like we were sibling bands. Like we became friends, and then we'd trade shows back and forth all the time, and they'd come here and play with us. We'd go up there and play with them. And God, they were so good. I played bass on a short tour with them, and I love those guys so much. And they're still all great friends. Amazing musicians. But you know, it was really nice in that era to the community with the Bedazzled bands and the Boston music scene, and people were doing different things musically, but like I said, of a similar mindset. So the fans of one band were usually fans of all the bands. We'd always play together, and the scene was just so supportive and such a great sense of community. And you know, we're still friends with all those people too. You know, Missile Thrush was another Boston band.
Awesome.
And, you know, they're so awesome. And actually, I have to call Val from Missile Thrush. I owe her a phone call, because we're going to work on a recording thing together soon. But it was such a great feeling at that time to like be part of a movement, part of a scene, and you know, you get coverage and all the fanzines and airplay on certain shows and stuff. And those people are still around. Those people are still friends, and all the connections that we made through radio and fanzine and stuff, we're still all friends all over the
It's
world.
really cool. Yeah, really, really nice.
Yeah. And then there's people like you who
The fans.
well, you're like,
Yeah.
you appreciate this music because it means something to you, and it means something to all of us. It's not just like,
Yeah, it's more a soulful thing. It's not to be just a hipster or anything like that.
right, it
It's
connects
really,
with you.
for me, it does connect. It's not like a statement to be cool or anything. It's
Right, because we're not cool. None of us are cool.
no, suppose not.
But it
But
is
yeah,
it's
the scene that celebrates itself, that's what they call it in England. The
yeah,
actual, the ride, the Thames Valley scene, ride, chapter
right,
house, slow dive. It was called the scene that celebrates itself. That's what a journalist named it as. So
right.
what you're saying about the guys in America and Canada, it seems to have happened over there as well.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it was very, very different from other kinds of music scenes. Like I was saying, like in our hometown area, it was a lot of like hair metal bands and stuff that was like 15 years back in time. Like we were stuck in a time warp, and a lot of those bands were very uh, negative, not very friendly, not very supportive.
Mm.
And then the scene that we got into was nothing but supportive and nothing but um, encouraging, and like, hey, we're doing a show, come be on the bill with us and stuff. Like we loved seeing each other's bands, and um, it was so welcoming, and so it was like strength in numbers, so we all felt like, oh, this is
Yeah.
awesome, we can do anything.
Mm.
And again, I'm still in contact with so many of those people, and they're some of the best people I've ever met. I love it.
Really awesome. I can see you getting emotional about it. So yeah, I mean, it must mean a
Absolutely.
lot to you. Yeah. Wow. Really happy for you, man.
Thank you. Me too.
Do you know Science Ferric are
Oh my God.
they're
Again,
another Canadian band, aren't they?
so I learned about them through an April March because they were good friends with each other, and before they were Science-Spheric, they were just called Cyan. And so Chris, the guitar player from an April March, he'd been doing sound for them at a couple of shows, I believe, and he was just telling me about them. I think they made me a mixtape with some of their stuff, and then I got the Somnium album,
Somnium, yes.
and I was just, oh my
That's an
God.
amazing album. Yeah, I really love it.
The song "Flow, Ebb, and Die" in particular, like it's
Yeah,
very like, kind of just loud, soft, like the
yeah.
dynamic of it, and it's just so trancy and cool. Like, man, and I never got to see them live. I'd always wanted to see them, but man, I love that album. There's so many, bands that people are finding out about that didn't really make the splash at the time. Like, we were really good friends with a band from Providence called Difference Engine. And if you
Yes,
don't know
yeah,
about them,
I know them as well.
like
The oh, was it
Bread Maker,
Bread
yeah,
Maker? Yes.
so amazing. So my story with them, I went to see, I believe it was Chapter House or Slow Dive. It might have been Slow Dive, at a little club in Providence, in '93 or maybe.
Mm.
Uh, it could be Chapter House, doesn't matter. But I was obsessed with music, and I would always go super early and make sure I see the opening band. And so many times that opening band would become my favorite band in the world. Like it wasn't, I
Mm.
didn't drink, I didn't like party and hang out. I loved the music so much. So this band nonchalantly walks on stage, yeah, whatever. And then they start playing, and I think they opened up with Five Listens, which was a single for them. And I was just, oh my God, they are so amazing.
Mm.
And
I
Blue
think
Ship,
I think it was a group on Facebook actually that I think that they introduced me to that album.
oh, it's so good. And then
Yeah.
then they were sort of like a male female singer thing.
Mm.
They had and the
Yeah.
the male singer, I can't think of his name right now. Like there was a story like they were on tour in England, and he just decided, I'm selling all my equipment and I'm quitting, and he just quit. And
Wow.
they came back and they sort of regrouped with
Mm.
a slightly different sound, and they put out an album. Margie, the bass player, she's got a project now called Fern Night, which is totally different, but she's amazing. But she and Michael, who was the other guitar player of Difference Engine, kept going for at least one more album that they did on Bedazzled. And it's very different. It's more like indie rock. It's not as effecty and as like sort of typical shoegaze.
Mm.
It's like the same thing that different that Drop 19s did. Drop 19's first album is like a legendary uh, shoegaze record, and then the second record was different, and people dismissed them. They didn't know. I don't like it. It doesn't sound just like the first album, and I
Yeah.
thought it was good in a different way. Difference Engine did a similar thing too. But yeah, I could talk about all the things I love all day.
Cool. Yeah, I think Difference Engine are out with the new album as well. Like maybe last year or something, they put something out.
I don't know about
And
that because I know their drummer has a project called Magic Shop, which is awesome. I don't, and
yeah,
I know Margie's doing Fern Night, but the thing is, Difference Engine is sort of a a popular name for bands. So there are other bands with that name that aren't them. I think there was one from Arizona as well.
yeah.
Well, back to the Curtain
But yeah,
System.
yeah, it is get back to the Curtain Society, definitely. Yeah, yeah. Sorry about the digression there.
No, I love it. I could talk about this stuff all
Right.
day. I'm a nerd, total nerd, music nerd, and I love bands that I love.
So yeah, on my notes here.
Nice.
So I was going to talk about the. I like the song structures in Shoegaze and the Curtain Society. I like how like Riverful doesn't have a chorus. You know, it has
Right. Like
it's a verse and then it goes like a refrain, and then there's like a payoff line that gets you back to the verse again,
right.
where it goes like never let me know,
Yeah.
you know, and then it's back to the
Yeah.
verse. I really like you never go to a chorus. I like that. And
It's
you
more
get that a lot in the genre, I think, you know, where it's like a verse pre-chorus and then the bands either fill it with some noise section or
right.
straight back to the verse.
Because
And
it's
I really
not
like that. I like that.
it,
You know, it shows you don't need something
right.
shouting, do you? Like to grab attention. You know, you don't need this one word, this
It,
tagline all the time.
it's not so much about the hook
Yeah.
as like mainstream pop music is. It's more about establishing whatever this feeling is, this
Mm.
vibe, this emotion is. And like, some songs, there's a song on that album, the Life is Long Still album called Apnea. That doesn't it what would be the chorus is just it's just saying it's just an there's no lyrics to that chorus because I was having a hard time writing the lyrics, and I'm like,
Yeah.
you know what, just let it be musical, let it be this pretty sort of musical thing, and it's okay. We're making our own rules. We're not trying to be, to fit into like this is the pattern it has to be because it's mainstream music or whatever. We're like, no, it's more important what it feels like than whether it's going to be a hit single. It wasn't
Yeah.
any of our goal.
Yeah, like a real flow. There's a real flow
Yeah.
to that song in particular. So also, yeah, like Chelsea as well is another song I would like to
Oh,
talk
that's
about.
way early. God, I think so. That came out that we wrote, where I wrote before we even had a band. Because when the band started, it was early 1988. I was in high school, and I'd been in bands. And at that point, I was really into a lot of, post-punk bands and sort of goth-leaning bands. I was really into Love and Rockets. I was really into the Chameleons. I was really into The Cure and the Cocteau Twins and that sort of thing. And
Mm.
I decided I wanted to do something specifically not rock music. I wanted to do something that was more atmospheric, I guess. And so I did a bunch of demos on my own. I had a drum machine, I had a bass, I had a guitar, I had a monophonic Moog synthesizer that I bought from Radio Shack, and a lot of pedals. And so I started doing these demos, and I would just go back and forth between two tape decks, bouncing back and forth. I didn't even have a studio, a 4-track or anything.
Wow.
And now that's what I do for a living. And I still have never bought a 4-track. But so that was a song. And I'll tell you this, I'll be honest about this. That was the chord progression in that song. It's kind of a cliche descending chord progression. And it was influenced by a band that, have you ever heard of the band The Essence?
No,
I think they were from Oslo, and they were a band that back then, they sounded so much like The Cure that people said they were The Cure, like incognito. It was so funny. It's ridiculous.
Norwegian Cure.
Right. And so they had a song called Endless Lakes on, I forget what record it was on, but at our first show, we actually covered that song. Our first show, we played 13 covers, very interesting covers, and 11 originals. And then we never played covers really again. We'd do like an encore here and there, but like that was like the first time we like half of our show was covers. And anyway, that the chord progression of that song like made me write it. When you're young and you're writing songs, a lot of times it's really, I can look back and say it's really obvious that what I was listening to or what I was influenced by. And that was influenced by an Essence song. And we put it out, so wrote it in 88, put a band together in the summer of 88, and officially released that in 93. And because we recorded it a couple of different times and then finally recorded it on the Where Are You album in 92, late 92, when it came out in 93. And, you know, I'm not sure, we didn't play that song that much after that point for some reason. We were just writing more and more better songs, but that was that might have even been the first song that I ever wrote under the name The Curtain Society.
Wow, awesome. Yeah, I think it featured on the compilation.
Yeah, it's on
Still in a Dream. Is it that one?
Yeah. God,
Yeah.
it's such an awesome compilation.
It is incredible. I've found out so much just through those 5 CDs.
Right. And it's like,
yeah,
there are a lot of compilations that I had when I was a kid, or movie soundtracks or whatever, that when I didn't have anybody to influence me, I didn't have a radio station to listen to, these compilations would become roadmaps for like, oh God, I got to find out more about this band and that band. And like Still in Dream absolutely was one of those things, like all these bands that I didn't, a lot of them I knew about, but like so many that I didn't, I was like, oh, I got to,
yeah.
you know.
It came out at the perfect time for me because it was like 2016.
Yeah.
And I was around 21, 22 years old. Because I'm only 30 now. But
that's life changing. Like when something like those ages, I'd say between like 15 and like 22, especially if you're a deep music fan, like it's so life changing. Like when you kind of find these like treasure troves, because you're obsessed with music. It's your life. It's everything to you, you know. And
yeah,
you find this stuff, and you're like, oh my God, I just found 10 new bands that I love. And it's just awesome. It feels so good.
Yeah, for sure, dude. And the revelation of finding out that there's like an underground underneath the commercial stuff. You
totally.
know, it's like you think you know everything about music, and then whoa, and
it's endless.
It's like another curveball is thrown, and you see this underworld.
Right. That's like my analogy to The Cure being pulling back the curtain and like pointing behind me. You're like, oh, look, the sound, the chameleons, Killing Joke, and, you know, everything on 4AD. I was obsessed with 4AD when I was a teenager. Oh, my God.
Yeah, I wish those guys were still around. Oh, they are still around, actually, aren't they? But it's not Ivo, What's Russell running the show. Because I think when Ivo was running the label, I think that was the true 4AD.
right. Like,
Not to say it's bad now, but
it's just different. And
yeah.
that heyday, to be there when it was happening, like I was saying, like to all of a sudden hear "Drive That Fast" by Kitchens of
Wow.
Distinction, which were on not 480, they're on One Little Indian, but to hear that um, for the first time, and Lush, it was deluxe.
Mm.
I saw that on MTV on 120 minutes. It was
Oh
the
yeah.
original version of the video, which obscured them, you know, because they were a band of like two women. So of course the record company wants to make them like the focal point. But when the original video of Deluxe came out, when it was not on Gala or whatever album it came, the compilation it came out on, it was just the Mad Love EP.
Mm.
They were obscured. They were like green lights, and like you couldn't really see what they looked like, and you just listen to the music. I'm like, oh my god, this is the greatest thing I ever heard. Like these chord changes and this ethereal
Mm.
vocal, and it was like finding, you know, your long lost best friend. You know, it's such an awesome time. It's so exciting, and that first wave of the stuff, it was just
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. That's what I always go back to listening to. I mean, maybe I should, I should spare more time for more modern bands, but I
But
always,
there are a lot of
I always find myself going back, though, to listening to your period.
you'll
Like,
never.
like Railway is my favorite from Strange Free
Oh,
World.
Kitchen, yeah,
The
that
first
song,
track, the way
perfect
the way
record
the
opener.
guitar, the way it uplifts at the end, the no surprise, that bit, and
It's
then the guitars just flow, don't they? Julian Swales.
He's so awesome. Like I
Yeah.
was lucky enough to see them quite a few times, and his guitar tone was bigger than any room he was in. Like
Yeah.
they'd play a smaller club in Boston or Providence, and like he'd be playing those echoey guitar parts, and I'd be like, "Oh my God, so majestic and beautiful,"
Yeah.
and like it's just too big for this room. It was just amazing. They were so good, and we were all so young back then too. Like Patrick
Yeah.
from Kitchens is like a surgeon or something, or he's a
Mm.
doctor up in England now, and
Doctor, yeah.
that's awesome.
It's incredible, yeah. The intelligence and musical talent,
Oh
yeah.
my God.
But yeah, I mean, another band that really they should have reformed. They did actually. They did the 2013
Yep.
Folly album, but I wish there was more because apparently they didn't even tour that album.
No.
They just released it and never played live. So I've missed a chance there to see them. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
I don't know if they'll ever get back. What do you think?
I doubt it. I don't even know where the other guys are now, but
Mm.
other than Patrick, had done some stuff. I know he'd done stuff with Eve Altana. I forget the name of the project now, but he was doing something. But the other guys, I don't know anything about what they were doing. But you know, you'll never like you'll always go back to the stuff that really like hit you when you were young. But I find new stuff that I love all the time,
Mm.
and you know, young bands and then bands that I didn't know about, like or go back to listen to bands that you know I was kind of into at the time, and then now I've really kind of gotten into them, like a band like Revolver were amazing, another English band. Um, but you know, to kind of steer it back to the Curtain Society, like we loved a lot of
Yeah.
that stuff. We were aligned with a lot of those bands sonically because we kind of we come from the same influences, but we also, you know, like those first shoegaze bands, the first wave, they all Lush didn't really sound like Ride, who didn't really sound like Kitchens of Distinction. They sort of did, but they had their own thing. And then after that wave, there were a lot of bands like in the later 90s that just sort of
Yeah.
did the sound but didn't quite have the songs, and it just kind of diluted it in a way, and it got a little bit just maybe overdone or something, like there was something missing from it. But
Yeah.
now it seems like is another wave of bands that are able to combine a lot more different influences and create stuff that sonically ticks the same boxes that make you feel good, but kind of take it in different directions, you know? I'm
Yeah.
finding new stuff all the time. And then there's stuff like Hatchie, who
Mm.
to me sounds like 1990 Cocteau Twins, or
Mm.
um, Men I Trust is another one that I listen to now. They definitely are retro in a way, but they make me feel a lot of, because their songs are really good and they make me feel the way I felt when I first heard a lot of these bands in the 90s.
Yeah, yeah, I do like Hachi. Yeah, and I've made a good point. I think you touched upon something I had in my notes here, which was you know, when you said about like Ride doesn't sound like Kitchens and Kitchen doesn't sound like Lush, like etc. And one of my points was, I think there's a wide scope in the shoegaze genre. You know, I think you can perform subtle passages of like
Right.
ambient and psych textures, or you can be really fully overblown, you know, or you can be like dance even, you know, like Curve
Right.
and Seafeel, you
Oh,
know, or you can be rocky like Swerve Driver and Hum, that kind of thing, you know.
yeah.
So
I love all that stuff. It's
there's
all
such a
different,
big,
but
yeah, but they all have that common theme of the dreaminess.
and the common theme of we don't necessarily want to be blues based rock. I think
Yeah,
that was kind of something that was huge for me starting out, was that I didn't want to be like a blues based like hard rock band. I had no interest in that, and I wanted to do stuff that was maybe a little bit more emotional, a little bit more
mm,
just less aggressive and
yeah,
like guitar
yeah. That's
solo.
the thing. Yeah, yeah. And I never really got the shoutiness in rock. Really, I always wanted something. I liked the big wall of sound guitars, but
It's
the
not
vote
angry.
I never wanted yeah, I don't want to be feeling angry when I'm performing.
Right.
Yeah,
There's something blissful about it instead of being
rah rah rah.
yeah. And I don't connect with any of that kind of thing. Like there's some heavy bands, like to me, a band like Hum and Swerve Driver
Yeah,
can have like these riffs that are like heavy and crushing, or even Curve. They, would be like a huge wall of sound, but it wasn't necessarily angry and made me feel bad.
mm.
It was
Yeah,
blissful.
you got it exactly. That's how I feel.
Yeah.
It's a real yeah. It's powerful but soothing at the same time.
Right. Yeah. And I don't know. It's like the feeling of having like warm sugar in your veins or something. Like it's
Mm.
comforting and blissful and psychedelic and like um and that, but there's something melodically, like you listen to My Bloody Valentine and their music is so melodic in a like a Beach Boysy kind of way, that just kind of, it's like a lullaby almost, yet it's
Yeah.
this gigantic wall of noise, and it's just beautiful, and I love it.
Yeah, one thing I need to say, Roger, is that we got less than a minute left,
Yeah,
unfortunately. So
I think
sorry,
we got
dude.
to do a part two. We
If
got
you
to
want to
we
do, yeah, we could do that. If you want to, it's up to you.
well, it's up to you. I could talk to you all day.
We could do. I mean, I can always just start another invite and then we go again.
Yeah, I mean, I'm that's, if you don't mind, that'd be awesome. I
Yeah, because we still got more Curtain Society to talk about. So that
And
would
we're
be
best
really.
friends now.
Hey, good stuff. Good to see you back.
So yeah, Curtain Society. Um, so we technically still exist, by the way. It's been 30, starting 88, so 38 years. No, 36 years. 36 years. We don't necessarily play gigs right now. Our bass player has some health issues that are
Hmm.
kind of changing our motivations and changing.
Hmm. Sorry to hear that.
Yeah, it's a bummer. But it's your goals change, and it's not necessarily about like having this uh career trajectory. Like when you're younger and you start a band, you're like, okay, I want to do this and I want to establish this goal and make this happen. And then you get older, and life brings you different places, and it's your priorities and your motivations are different. And So right now I work as a recording producer, and I'm building a new studio at my house in a barn, and I'm working at another studio in the meantime, but I've always worked in other people's studios. I've never had my own. And to finally have my own space that I can kind of set it up however I want to, part of the reason to do that is because I want to have sort of a home base for the three of us in the Curtain Society to kind of just be together and like be who we are. And whether we're making music or not, it's, you know, it's like we're family, and we're all still very close, and we still live within 20 minutes of each other. But it's, your motivation isn't so much about, you know, let's do an album and tour and do this and achieve this goal. It's more, hey, even if we just sit around and talk about music we like, or talk about how we're doing, or you know, if we play music, that'll be awesome too. But just to have a place that's sort of a safe home for us to be able to just hang out is going to be, it's a really important part of my life. You know, that was my identity for so long. And I wouldn't be surprised if Ron and Duncan don't feel the same way. And the fact that we haven't really played in several years, and like the last time we played was early 2019, and the pandemic hit, and we haven't played since. But we did our 30th anniversary show in December 2018. Oh my God, was that amazing. One of my goals this summer is I recorded that show multi-track, and I have a few other Curtain Society shows that I recorded multi-track that I want to finally mix and put out just for posterity, whatever. But
that'd be cool to hear that.
You know, especially that anniversary show, it was such a good experience, and the people that were there were like people that had been there since the beginning for us, and just the most wonderful people, and it was a very shared experience. It wasn't like, hey, we're a band and we're going to play some music and you're going to be the audience. It was very mutual, and it was a really special night for all of us. And so I want to finally finish mixing that concert and, I don't know, put it out somehow.
That'd be really good to hear. I would definitely hear that and download it, or
I'll send you the mixes when they're done, for sure.
Woohoo! That'd be awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. But you know, we all are we love music, all of us, so much. Like, it's such a deeply rooted thing in all of our souls that, like,
really good.
We did, and the music that we have made it's I don't know, it's, for me, it's really emotional. It's a really, like, and because of the kind of music that we did, it's not like, I don't know, it just means something. It means something very deep to me, at least, and I'm pretty sure that Ron and Duncan feel the same way.
Really awesome, and I really like the concept of having your own studio and learning mixing and stuff, because that's what I'm doing at university at the moment.
That's what I've done since, as like my career, since I was 19, and I don't know how to do anything else. I love it so much. If that's what you're learning how to do, you hit me up. I'll help you.
Okay,
love it.
Yeah, I'm in year 3 now of the university's music production and sound engineering course.
That's awesome.
I'm really enjoying it.
We'll have an email exchange after this, because that's my life. I mean, that's how the Curtain Society started. I taught myself how to record just because I had these songs in my head. And then when I was 19, I started working at a commercial studio, just kind of tricked them into letting me work there and mix, not just being an intern. I was like, the first day I worked there, I mixed 2 albums for like 2 punk rock bands.
Whoa. Yeah.
So
Nice.
we produced, I engineered and we produced everything the Curtain Society's ever done, and which, you know, I think we came a long way technically in, you know, how things sounded, but it was always, since I was in middle school, it's always been something that I wanted to do. I wanted to learn. I remember listening to some music, a particular song in headphones when I was in middle school, and hearing this guitar sort of swirling around my head in headphones. I'm like, whatever that job is that makes that guitar do that, that's what I want to do.
Yeah.
So
it sounds like you come from the same like route as me. Like I
yeah,
think the music drives the desire to mix and master.
yeah.
You know, I think, yeah, like especially getting into this ethereal alternative rock stuff.
And I do a lot of different stuff, but it's like to be able to create atmospheres like that, you know, to figure out how to use effects in ways that kind of create it. One thing that I loved about a lot of shoegaze bands and stuff that I was always trying to do in the studio and with guitar effects, and so you would hear it and you wouldn't know exactly what it was. So is that a flanger? Is that reverb? Is that a synthesizer? Is that a guitar? It would just be like this blurry thing that sounded, you know, awesome, but you didn't know exactly what it is or how to replicate it. And like, I love that stuff. It's always exciting for me to create things that aren't obvious. And so if you're a musician and you can listen to stuff and say, oh yeah, that's a fuzz box, that's a big muff, that's a delay pedal, and that's whatever.
Yeah.
But if you can, as a musician and a music fan, if you can listen to something and say, I don't know what that is, and it suspends the, it's a kind of a childlike thing, if that makes any sense, where you're like, wow, what is that? Oh, wow. And it takes you somewhere else.
Yeah.
And it removes you from the what it is specifically, and all of a sudden it's like a sound. It's, you know, I remember the first time hearing My Bloody Valentine. It was not even Loveless. It was the
Isn't anything.
Well, it was the Tremolo EP was the first thing I really heard, and that's
got To Hear Knows When.
Yeah,
that's the big single.
Swallow and Moon Song, I think.
Yeah,
it was like otherworldly. Like, what is that? What is this sound? And it was so beautiful. Like Swallow, that song in particular, like was, you know, the bending of the guitar and just
it's such a nice tone on the strum. The strumming on that is such a great tone. The jazz master sound.
Right. It takes you somewhere else.
Yeah, I think you're a jazz master player yourself, aren't you? I think it's a picture on Google Images of you playing.
Yeah, I have a lot of guitars, but I have 4 jazz masters, I think, and I put them all together from parts. I'd buy like,
all right, nice.
Back, like, I think the first one was 1995. I bought a body from a local music store for $70, and I bought a neck from somebody else for $150, and I put it together, and that became my main jazz master, and it's magic. The guitar is just, it's just something about it that
Olympic whites.
Yeah, but beat to hell. Like, it was already like totally scuffed up and lots of chips in it, and like nobody cared about it. They probably threw it around in their basement, and I bought it. I'm like, this guitar is going to be magic. And you get it and you put the guitar on, you're like, and it inspires you to write songs. There's songs in it, you know? Did that in 96 when we did our second, where we did Life is Long Still. I bought a Fender Bass 6 because Fender had just reissued it at that time. and I was into I wanted a bass six because
That's
Cocteau
the
Twins and The Cure.
Robert Smith. Yeah, I was gonna
Right.
say that's the Robert Smith bass.
And I was really in what I loved, especially about Cocteau Twins and The Cure, was that a lot of the songs were bass driven, and they'd have bass lines
Mm.
that were chords or were specifically. Here's a big thing was Simon from Cocteau Twins. His bass on the This Mortal Coil song, the cover of Kangaroo. That song blew me away when I heard it.
Yeah.
There's this bass line. It's sort of Peter Hooky, like New Order or Joy Division, but it's different. It's more ethereal, and I'm gonna write songs on bass. So a lot
Yeah.
of the Curtain Society songs I wrote on bass, and then worked them out with Ron, our bass player, and like some songs we're both playing bass on because I'm playing the bass six and he's playing a 4-string bass. It's guitars and pedals and things like that. I'm not the kind of guy that sits there with an acoustic guitar, although I did that this morning. I sat on my porch and played acoustic guitar. I'm not that kind of songwriter. And sometimes I need a guitar to sort of inspire me to come up with something, or tuning, a weird tuning.
Yeah.
Some of the songs that we did were just me randomly like tuning the guitar to some random open chord and just, okay, here's a song. And we did a lot of songs like that, like just, I got to write this tuning down because I'll never remember it. And that was even before I knew that there were other bands that did that, like Swirlies or Idaho or whatever, or Swerve Driver.
Yeah.
You know,
I heard that. Yeah, Adam Franklin from Swerve Driver does the same trick apparently.
yeah,
They just used to turn the tuning pegs and whatever state the peg was, they just
right,
rolled with it and tried to come up with stuff.
right. And it sounds familiar and then totally unique at the same time. I love that stuff. But I love to be inspired by, I mean, that's another thing about like shoegaze music and anything that's like ethereal is, say you just put a lot of reverb on something and then you play one note and you feel something from that sound and it makes you write a song. It's not just about the sound. It's got to be a song behind it. But like, I do get inspired by the guitar pedals and the effects and messing around in the studio. We'd write a lot of stuff in the studio where we wouldn't have a song at all, and we would just come up with some kind of loop and spin it backwards and play a beat over it and come up with something that excites us. Like, that's fun. It's really fun to do that stuff, and then try to turn it into a song.
Yeah,
it's
cool,
nice to know
cool
that
stuff.
it's nice to know that you're doing that, like you're learning how to record, because it's like being a magician in a way. Like, you love music means everything to you, and then to know how to bake it and cook it and turn the ingredients into a meal. It's a great feeling at the end of the day. You listen to your song and like,
especially if it's to your own song instead of
right.
another artist. Yeah.
And I produce all kinds of stuff, like, like you'd be surprised the different kinds of artists that I produced over the years. Like, I used to do a lot of hardcore bands back in the 90s, just because my studio was really cheap then. So all the hardcore bands were recording with us for $20 an hour. But I do a lot of different stuff, but I love working on stuff that's that people care about what it sounds like. You know what I mean? Like, shoegaze bands really care about the sonics of it and the feeling of it, and those little details mean a lot. And I love that stuff. It's exciting and it's fun to come up with sounds and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was finding out about Alan Moulder, who is the famous mixer who did a lot of the Creation records.
Nobody could mix a record like him.
Yeah,
All that he
Alan
did.
Moulder, particularly the track "Leave Them All Behind" by Ride. You know that the last minute or two where the guitars just they're
Yeah,
like hitting the limiter. And
exactly.
this is the thing, I always thought before I found out about the whole mixing thing, because you always think about the musician, out in front, like in a sports team, you always think about the players more than
Yeah,
the backroom staff. Finding out about mixers and
right,
masterers and engineers, that opened another door, and I thought, wow, there's more people involved in this production,
right,
like a whole movie, like a movie, Hollywood's kind of thing.
right.
There's so many people involved, and I always just thought, like leave them all behind. I always thought the guitarists are making themselves deaf, by playing, at the volume of an aeroplane taking off.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, these guys must be really brave guys. Just the amps must be like, it must be like 5 or 6 amps cranked to the max. But then I found out about, like, compression and like
Right.
limiting and EQing will, help.
Yeah.
You don't have to play at a high volume to
The beauty of it,
create the illusion,
you
of
listen to a song like that, like Leave Them All Behind, you don't have to listen to it loud. You can listen to it quietly and you'll still get that feeling of like
mm,
by the end of the song, your heart is beating faster and like it just sounds like
yeah.
it's exploding, but it's illusion that it's so loud and powerful.
Mm,
And that there's an art to that for sure, as far as like layering guitars. And here's the thing that's interesting that I find about shoegaze music and production is a lot of bands, your drummers, like with rock, hard rock music or most rock music, if a song is gonna like take off and get like a heavy part, the drums are gonna get more bashy and like play more fills, more cymbals.
mm,
But with like Leave Them All Behind, those drums just kind of like keep that groove going, and it's the guitars that keep it's the parts that they're playing and the sound, the tones that they're using that just elevate it and make it bigger and bigger and bigger. The drums aren't getting crazy.
yeah.
My Bloody Valentine stuff, the drums are buried in the mix. They're barely there, but the sound sounds like it's a freight train coming in your face. And
Yeah.
it's an interesting technique to know how to mix something and layer things in such a way. That's why Alan Moulder is so amazing at that.
Mm,
Even the stuff he did with Nine Inch Nails and definitely Curve and Jesus and Mary Chain, like nobody mixed like huge guitars like he did or does. Like
yeah.
the Mescal Head
Mescal
Swerve Driver
Head. Yeah, he
is
did
one of the
that.
best guitar records I've ever heard. And
Mm.
it's so, the layers are so distinct
Yeah,
and the
like Rick,
dynamic.
sorry, Rick Beato. Sorry for
Yeah.
interrupting there, but
Yep.
you just reminded me of, that Rick Beato guy.
Yep.
He featured girl on the motorbike.
I was so awesome when he did
And
that.
yeah, and like you said, the layers in that middle section where the guitars they're really going for it, and there's just so
Yeah.
much going on. That's a great example, that song, of the Alan Moulder production.
Right. It's so,
And Jewel, the
oh my God.
hit Jewel is
That was a song
amazing.
that killed me, was Duel. I liked I liked the first Swerve Driver record, but I kind of thought they were more like Dinosaur Jr. that I hadn't quite connected with yet. I like Dinosaur Jr. now, but at the time I thought it was just more like slacker, sludgy
Yeah.
rock. And then Duel came out, and I'm like, oh my God.
There's some
It's
more.
amazing how when it opens up to the I'm going down, 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 like
Yeah.
that part, like the song is like not claustrophobic, but it's like churning until it gets to that part. And then it just opens up wide and beautiful. And it's like elation. You feel this like,
Yeah, the wah pedal is like
yeah.
you get that kind of layer to it. I think it's a wah pedal going like that.
Yeah.
Wah with phaser and lots of distortion.
Or they use like a wah and but not use it like Eric Clapton would have used it. They use
Yeah.
it to,
Yeah, rides do that as well. Like they use the phaser with it. I think that really helps get that sound.
yeah. That's another thing that was a big thing for me, especially with the Curtain Society. There, sometimes I love to just plug a guitar into an amp with a cable, and that's it. But I love guitar pedals, and I've been collecting them since I was a kid.
Mm.
So
The
that
tremolo sounds as well that you get on songs like I think it was Gravity and Adrenaline.
Adrenaline, for example,
Yeah.
was and that tremolo is a trick. I remember seeing. I knew that Cocteau Twins did it, but I saw Chapter House at a small club, and they did. I forget which song it was now. It'll come to me, but I looked at the rack that the guitar player had behind him, and I saw this thing, this LED pulsing, and he's playing, and the guitar is going, the guitar was tremoloing in this pattern, and that pulsing light. I'm like, oh my God, he's got a noise gate, and he's got a drum machine triggering the noise gate to open and close, but you don't hear the drum machine. You just hear the, oh my God. And I went back to the studio the next day and figured out how to, now you can do it in Pro Tools and nobody bats an eye. But back then, to have a drummer playing to a click track, coming from a drum machine that is telling a noise gate to like
Yeah.
open and close at this pattern.
Like being a scientist, isn't it?
I love that stuff. And I look back on a lot of stuff that we did, and a lot of these effects that nobody will ever hear, things that are like buried in the mix, and that's fine. But these really cool little tricks that we would do in the studio, like there's stuff all over the Every Corner of the Room record where we would just be, there's one song where go ahead.
No, sorry. I'll let you finish.
Well, we put like little microphones and little piezo elements with clamps on a stool and ran it through a bunch of guitar pedals. And Duncan would like tap on a stool with pencils, and it would make this all these noises in the background of a song. You don't know what it is. You think it's a keyboard or something, but we actually, or the song No Wonder on that record, there's like a part in before a verse where you hear like this, it sounds like a percussion thing going kink, 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 kink. It's him playing a drumstick on like one of those old metal fans from like the 50s, like a fan. Nice. And he's playing the metal of it, and I just put a microphone on it, and we would do anything to not just take the easy way out and call up a preset on something. And that's part of the joy of like being in a band that's more than just strumming a song.
That's it. It's like Stan Winston's Industrial Light and Magic,
right?
Like Stan Winston's ILM. It's the studio can be like that. So much creativity.
Do it the hard way and come up with something cool and unique. Yeah, I love that stuff.
But yeah, talking about that record, every
corner of the room.
Yeah, Every Corner of the Room. My favorite song from it is Two Wonderful Stars.
So we in the mid-90s, I was really into Curve, and I was really into My Bloody Valentine. I was into these bands that would have these like repeating loops, or C-feel actually.
Yeah.
These just loops and that go through a song. And so I had this, at the time I had this digital delay unit, a rack that let you sample something and then hit a foot switch and trigger it. And one day I just did that sound, and I kept hitting it, and came up with the chord progression and came up with a song that you can play that song without that little loop, but it's the hook. It's how the song starts. And then second verse, I put it all into, when we recorded it, I took the second verse and I flipped it backwards. So like you barely notice it, but we did. And but I couldn't do that live with that delay unit because I'd be like, okay, hold it. This is back before people had loopers. And so I'd be like, hold it, I got to make this sound. The first time we did it was the song Mouth Without on The Life is Long Still.
Yeah, no, that's another highlight track that I got here in my notes. Yeah. Yeah, I like the riff to that. How does it go again? I'm trying to think. Yeah.
It's similar to Two Wonderful Stars, I guess. And that, you know, came from being inspired by bands like Seafield and My Bloody Valentine and stuff, but doing our own version of it that doesn't really sound like, I hope it doesn't sound exactly like what they did, but doing it live was really hard because I couldn't do it with my delay unit. So then I ended up getting this very archaic sampler, an Akai sampler, the first cheap sampler that was ever released in the 80s. I bought it really cheap, and it saved sounds on these little quick discs. They weren't even floppy disks. It was so old. And I'd have to load it in, hit load, and then I had this MIDI foot switch I would hit to play those loops. And then eventually, now we're to the point where we just have an iPod, and we have the whole track on a, you know, an MP3, and we put it through the PA, and Duncan will play to a click track. But figuring out how to like incorporate that stuff was a challenge a little bit.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, I mean, something I've never done as a live performer. I don't think I've ever done any of those kind of tricks. I just kind of just play the guitar with the effects. I got a MIDI controller for my Roland's GP16, which
you've got a GP62. Yeah, I just bought one like last year.
Oh, okay, cool.
I never used multi effects. I have like 300 some odd pedals. I build pedals too. I started building guitar pedals in the 80s, but I have all old, mostly analog pedals and some very old guitar synthesizers that I'll use occasionally, but I never used multi-effects. And like back when Lush and Ride came out, they were both using the
GP16, yeah.
And I finally bought one for like $70 a couple of years ago. I'm like, oh, cool. Now I finally have it.
It's amazing the way you can adjust the parameters with the expression. If you've got the EV5 expression, you can set the parameters. So when it's tilted up, you know, you can set how, when you go down on it, you can adjust how extreme it's going to be in parameters, and that can control the rate or the, you know, the depth. So you can change. It's really a machine that you can really play around with for hours and hours.
Yeah,
lots of
you
fun.
Get deep.
Yeah.
And so my live rig now, like I can say, I have like 300 guitar pedals and echoplexes and all kinds of stuff. But live, I've really had the same live rig. It's in one pedal board case, a big heavy case, coffin. But it's been pretty much consistent for the last 25, 30 years. And I do have, it's mostly all analog pedals, but then I have the Line 6 modulation and delay, and they both have expression pedals on them for stuff like that. So I can use the expression pedals to change the rate of a flanger or a phaser or a Leslie effect or a tremolo. But it's nice with those, it's nice to be able to have delay times, because I used to have a delay rack. Everything else was on the floor, and then I'd have a rack with this delay, this, you know, very old 80s Korg delay. I love this box. I still think it's the best sounding digital delay ever. But you could do programs, and our songs would have very distinct tempos. So I wanted the echo on the guitar to be a quarter note or whatever, and or a triplet. And it had tap tempo, but I wasn't using tap tempo. I would have like the presets of, okay, this is the next song, hit the button, and it goes to the next preset, and delay time would be the right delay time. And now all that stuff is so easy, and we take it for granted. But back in the day, even in just the 90s, it was, you know, you had to figure out how to do that stuff. And I didn't want to be on the floor like turning knobs. I wanted everything. Here's the next song, hit the button, and there it is, without using multi-effect. Everybody else is using GP16s, and I'm like, oh, I got the pedals. I got the pedals.
Yeah, it's really good. Yeah, I mean, there's so much options, as you say, these days. Lots of the boutique pedals.
And I don't even have a lot of boutique
Like
pedals.
people like Catlin Bread in Oregon.
They're amazing.
They're amazing. Catlin Bread and you know, so many others. Empress, Chase Bliss,
Earthquaker,
TC Electronic from Denmark are incredible. The Hall of Fame pedal. I've got the Hall of Fame for the shimmer mode. That's incredible.
Yep. And
Electro Harmonics Cathedral is what I normally use for the reverse reverb.
Okay. I got
like the PN2 tremolo. I've got that. The tremolo pan.
I have two of those.
Boss. Because that's how you can split the signal to two amplifiers using that. If you
and you can run two different things into it. So you can run, if you're recording, you can run two completely different guitar tracks into it, and to the right and the left, and have them tremolo in time or opposite each other by running two things into it and then going out in stereo. It's a great little sleeper pedal.
Crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, I am sort of a big nerd about guitar pedals and the history of them and electronics. I do electronics, so I know how they work and why they work. And so that is yep.
This is
Pedal Crush.
An amazing book.
I have that on right over there too.
Yeah.
There's a guy in that, it's either in that book or the other book, the Rarities. I think it's the Rarities book, who lives near me, Daniel Danger, and he's got the largest electro-harmonics collection in the world, about an hour west of me. He's a talented guy, that guy. Wow. Great illustrator and a great musician. But I am definitely fascinated by guitar pedals, and that definitely led me to why the Curtain Society sounded the way it did or does. And I just loved the fact that guitar pedals would allow you to make a guitar not sound like a guitar. Why did I want to do that? I don't know. I just didn't want to sound like everybody else. I don't want to sound like Van Halen or whatever. And this is even before there was any such thing that I knew about of shoegaze or the kinds of bands. Like I barely knew about bands like The Cure, and I was still interested in making a guitar not sound like a guitar. I would put tape on the strings and make it sound like a ring modulator, or I'd put cardboard under the strings and make it sound like a sitar. And then I'd get one pedal and I'd spend 6 months working out every knob setting and everything that this thing could do, and abusing it to the point, like making it do things it's not supposed to do, and be like, yeah, that's a cool sound, and I'm going to write that down. And it was always fascinating. It's a hobby for me, creating these weird sounds with the guitar, but then apply it to a song, a melodic song. It's like they're not supposed to work together, but they do.
Yeah. Yeah, really cool outlook. Yeah, I like that. So is there any plans for Curtain Society?
I'm never ruling out putting some more music out, ever. And finishing the studio is kind of pivotal to that. Like, once, we could record something at the studio I work at now, but to have a place that we can just comfortably hang out and there's drums. Duncan will always have a set of drums that's set up, mic'd up, ready to go. The studio is large enough that clients can come in and bring their own stuff, but I will have stuff where the Curtain Society could just walk in and just press record and even if we just jam, come up with a something, it doesn't really matter. But to have a safe place where we can feel like we can be creative and not really have any pressure on us, that's what I want in my life, you know, like it's important to me. And those guys are everything to me, you know, like again, the music is emotional music, and to the relationship that you have with the people that you make it. And like we grew up together. We didn't like have fights and like hate each other and like move apart and never talk to each other again. We never got successful enough and made enough money to hate each other, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
So we're still like, we are family like as anybody could be. And this is like the most important thing to me, is to have experiences like that. So to have a space where we can even just mix these live albums that we haven't mixed and do it together, like that's good for me, you know. I think it's good for all of us, you know. This band has meant the world to us, and you know, we never broke up. Every other band in the world broke up around us, and we just, you know, it's not necessarily a defined thing, I guess. It's hard to describe, but it's like it's just who we are. It's just, and if we haven't done it in a while, it doesn't mean that we're not going to do it. You know, we're all creative people, and if Ron's got health issues, he's going to find a way to contribute in a different way. If he's not playing bass, you can do something else, and it's not important what it is. It's important that it is, I think, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, hopefully he gets well soon. Send me the best wishes.
I will.
Send him the best wishes.
He's like, Ron has been with me so long. The story of him joining the band is hilarious, and I'll tell it to you real quick because we can only get a second. I had that demo tape of the songs that I'd recorded and wanted to put a band together, and I met him in school and I said, yeah, you know, I'm thinking of putting a band together. He goes, well, I play bass. And I brought him a demo tape the next day. So we'll have an audition next week. The next day after that, he came in wearing a pin he made a pin that said the Curtain Society. And it was like, oh my God, he better be good, because now it's too late. I can't tell him no. And we've been inseparable ever since. It's the best. He's one of the greatest human beings you'll ever meet. And Duncan's awesome. Duncan is absolute family. I'm hopefully going to see him tonight. These are my brothers.
Yeah. Awesome stuff. Really good. Really happy for you, man. And hopefully I can get the whole band on maybe next time. So,
yeah, definitely. I'll email you. We'll continue talking, and we'll you know, I'm sure they would be psyched to talk about some stuff, but like you and I, we're going to talk recording.
Yeah. Thank you. Peace out.
You're the best. Thank you so much, Sam.
Thank you. I think that's going to be some good promotion for you, dude.
Thank you.
Hopefully get some good views and stuff. So
awesome. Thank
okay,
you so
good.
much.
We're gonna wrap it up now. Okay.
Thank you so much.
See you, Roger. Thank you.
Have a good one.
Yeah, and you, buddy. Thank you. Bye.